Super Hero Time starts now.
Case number 21. Hope you're not sick of eggs because we have another one that hatches in the sea. But it's okay, this time we have a defender of the earth to help us. But can they be trusted? Jun, Yuriko, and Ippei play cards on a cruise ship, and after losing, she takes a walk in a huff. She wanders around and spots a doll laying around. She then sees a shooting star, or is it? The doll then starts to talk to her. Oh man, is this going to be like the Twilight Zone with that evil talking doll?
私の名はゼミ。ルパーツ星人です。地球人に警告します。地球に怪獣ボスタングが侵入しました。
Yuriko runs back and tells the boys about what she heard, but of course they don't believe her that she has a talking doll. She's been pretty right for 20 episodes, why would she be wrong now? Anyway, the shooting star from before lands in the sea and begins to hatch. Ippei says he'll take Yuriko on another one next time, but Jun says it's too soon. Give it up, Ippei. She's obviously not into you. Besides, you just laughed at her a minute ago. Besides, I'm pretty sure she's into Jun. He's what the kids would call a Chad today.
さあ、ここだ。はい。どうした？ダメです。
The plane flies itself to a runway and Jun and Ippei are missing. The two find themselves transported to a mountain lodge, or so it seems. The voice from the doll, Zemi, tells Jun Bostang is almost here, and where they can find her.
そんな話を信じると思ってんのか？
どうしても信じていただけないようでしたら、私が地球に行くほかはありません。
地球へ行く？
そうです。私は今、ルパーツ星にいるのです。
そんな星があるもんか？
信じていただけないようですね。それではこれから地球へ参ります。
よし、姿を見せろ。それから話を聞こう。
A UFO appears over the water and someone walks out onto dry land. Meanwhile, Bostang finally hatches and emerges from the sea. Jun and Ippei with Yuriko go to the rendezvous to meet Zemi. She brings them up to speed on what happened.
ボスタングはキール星人が地球征服を目的として地球に送り込んだものです。
この怪獣が地球に侵入したんですか？
すでに被害が起こりました。
被害が？
As they board a ship, Zemi spots Bostang nearby. They load the cannons, but Zemi says they can't stop Bostang that way. It's sensitive to sound and won't attack silent things. So they decide to cut their engines. It wakes up and begins heading for another cruise ship it hears. So they decide to start up their engines to distract it. The ship and planes open fire, killing it. Zemi says there are other protectors like her. All over the place. I mean, let's be fair, how often do you look at a man's shoes?
あなたの隣の方、その人も宇宙人かもしれませんよ。
Just checking my shoes, folks. I had to be sure I wasn't one of them. Anyway, case number 22. Can butterflies poison you? Or maybe not poison you, but turn you into a giant that roams the jungle? I know it doesn't make sense, but I'll try anyway. Some explorers find remains in a jungle. Something in nature is stirring. At the paper, someone else is assigned to this case, not Yuriko. She then gets a call from a friend, Ayako. She tells Yuriko that her fiancé Koji is in danger and that a giant is attacking. Jun is skeptical of the story, but Yuriko says this giant is most likely Koji, Ayako's fiancé. So of course she wants to go investigate. They later discover, thanks to Professor Ichinotani, about a giant butterfly in the Amazon, a morpho, which is what Koji went to study. We see what happened and how he got stung by the morpho. After falling into a swamp, the water somehow mutated him into a monster. Ayako feels guilty for leaving him behind, and when she heard the news of a yeti or giant, she knew it must be him. Sure enough, the reporters spot the giant man, and it is indeed Koji. Ayako asks Jun to take her to him, and Yuriko wants to go with them to get the story.
Ayako-san.
おい、どこ行くんだい？
毎日新報の女性キャメラマン世紀の特ダネを追って大冒険飛行よ。先輩、頼むわよ。さあ、行きましょう。
え？調子いいぞ。先輩！おい、行くぞ。調子いいぞ、お前も。
Ayako knows the terrain, so she leads the way when they get there. They find the lighter that Koji dropped, and the swamp he drank from is gone. Koji the giant then peeks over the trees, so they run. Ayako tries to talk him down as the military shows up and goes to attack. A village is evacuated when the military brings in the heavy artillery to take Koji down. Koji then knocks the power lines out of his way. Oh sure, they stop Godzilla dead in his tracks, but Koji just knocks that stuff aside.
待ってください。
Ayako-san, 出ちゃダメ。行かせて。行かせてちょうだい。
Ayako tries once again to talk Koji down, and Professor uses some fancy device that shoots an X-beam, which shrinks him back down to size.
Ayako-san.
Koji-san.
This これは架空の話ではありません。あなた自身の話なのです。もしもあなたの恋人がアンバランスゾーンの中へ落ちたとき、それでもあなたの愛は変わらないと言えるでしょうか。
Case number 23. Well, it was going to come to this eventually. A giant octopus. And where there's a giant squid, there's an island with pretty island girls and questionable islanders. See for yourself. A young man named Yuzo is steering a boat as his father, Captain, lectures him. Suddenly the boat is attacked. Giant tentacles grab the men and wreck the ship. Guess who washes ashore after the attack? Yuriko and the guys are sent by the boss to investigate it, but she refuses. The boss insists she go, but he convinces her to take a translator with her, named Minami. The islanders tend to the survivor as the team makes its way to the island. Yuzo begins to teach the pretty island native girl who saved him how to speak Japanese. But one of the islanders doesn't approve and beats the guy up. Our heroes make their way to the island, find part of the ship, and are quote-unquote greeted by the islanders.
Oh, Bostang.
Minami-kun.
Sajaba Vietana. Bahas datenji. Tanusumare dogonji.
Ambege. Mangalo.
協力ができ、すぐ帰れと言ってます。
こうなったら運転まで粘ってよ。さあ早く。
サジャバウエタナバハスダテンジドモニマリカントリーナセソ
カベゲ
ダテンジバハスドノディーナバハスダ
ベゲマンガロ
ダテンジケルカミントケルカミントダテンジ
カベゲ
They mention something called Sudar. Suddenly the giant cephalopod from before makes its way onto the island and attacks. That's Sudar. It seems this Sudar has taken down 5 or 6 other boats before this one. Jun saves a boy from being killed, and now they know why it's called the Sea of Death.
パクビカカクスタールメンコ。
彼女の親父も兄貴もスダールに殺されたそうだ。
何？あんた本当か？
Juga star pro. Juga par.
でもスダールを恨んだりしてはいけない。スダールはこの島の守り神だと言ってる。
マシンか。 スダールだよ。あのおダコは外敵の侵入を防ぐ防波堤にもなり、島の平和は維持されている。それを島の人たちはスダールのおかげだと思ってるのかもしれん。
そんなバカな。
いや、考えられることだ。
スダール侵攻ってわけか。
Jun and Ippei try to go to a neighboring island to call the Air Force to deal with Sudar. When they return, they discover that Yuriko, Minami, Yuzo, and the island girl Anita are about to be burned at the stake, most likely a sacrifice for Sudar. Meanwhile, the airstrike begins and Sudar is bombed. The natives watch this attack, and this gives the boys a chance to save the captives. Sudar then crawls ashore and attacks the village. It crushes the huts with its tentacles, and the natives hurl spears at it. Later, Yuzo stays on the island with Anita as the team heads home. Case number 24. What happens when a deep, dark secret is in an ancient artifact? And when our vices and greed get the better of us, that secret will be revealed. A mysterious statue of something called Goga is discovered and is brought to Japan. Hey, maybe don't let the kid hold the ancient artifact. She hands it to a lady who gets in a car with some shady characters. The girl is then grabbed too and kidnapped. Wait, what just happened? The lady Aline introduces herself to the boss. It seems this guy has stolen many ancient artifacts and is adding this one to his collection. Now he has one more. News of the girl and statue reach Yuriko. She and the boys are on the case. The boss tells them about the legend of Goga.
Gogaの像の言い伝えを知ってるか。ゴーガのためにアランカ帝国は一夜にして滅び去ったと言われとる。
ゴーガを眠りの天より起こすなら、溺れる者と溺れる者たち。溺れる者たち。
どうした？
字がかすれています。
なんとか読むんだ。
溺れる者たちへ6000年の呪いを込める。アランカは罪とともに没す。
さすがはアリン嬢。
Later, the thieves discover thanks to carbon dating, not only is it real, it's growing. The lady then hears the statue chanting about the curse. The crooks discover the real Aline is still in Hong Kong. This imposter tries to save the girl, and one of the goons notices the statue glowing. It then zaps him with laser eyes and begins to crack up and falls. A small monster emerges from it, the actual Goga. The others find him, but his face is melted off, and the monster is glowing and growing. No, that's not a typo, it's actually glowing and growing. Later, someone is assassinated, and Jun finds the dead man and a communicator hidden in his watch. The crook discovers the lady talking to him, telling where the child is. They lock her up with the girl, and Yuriko and the others search for them. This female James Bond picks the lock, and they try to sneak out. She incapacitates one with powder inside her ring, and this alerts the others to where they are. Jun and the others eventually find the base. The spy and the girl find Jun's gang, and they're eventually cornered, locked into a room together.
ゴーガが蘇ったんです。
The spy here gets them out with an explosive and the cops spot them in the rubble. But one of the henchmen gets up. Jets fly over Goga and are blasted out of the sky. She figures out it's weak to fire, but they have to take out those laser eyes first. The gang heads out with bazookas and take aim. The one henchman that survived aims a sniper rifle but misses, and Goga tramples him to death. The military take flamethrowers to Goga and it's finally engulfed in flames.
Marude アランカ帝国と同じだ。
6000年の呪い。東京もゴーガに呪われたのかしら。
Case number 25 is interesting. What happens when hypnosis goes too far? It's fun to watch someone get hypnotized on stage and do tricks. But when a little girl gets hypnotized one time too many, well, she finds out what happens the hard way. A bizarre accident happens on the road. It's the most recent of many. Not too far away, a performing troupe is doing a show with a father-daughter team. The gang watches as the child is hypnotized and teleports, then walks in midair after being sealed in a box. Our heroes wonder how they did that. Professor Ichinotani thinks it has something to do with human bioelectricity. A rare few people have this special gift, and the girl Lily must be one of them. The father seems to be protective of his little girl. He even hypnotized her to put her to sleep. Another quote-unquote accident occurs after that.
喜ぶだろうな。チビのやつこれ持って帰ったら。
Yuriko is given the assignment, naturally. The professor does some experiments on bioelectricity with Ippei. It does indeed cause the body and the soul to separate.
どうしてこんな実験をしてみせたと思うかね。最近頻々と起こる事故についての君の疑問だがね。
ええ。事故に遭った人間が必ず何かなくしているという。
それもごくつまらないものなの。懐中電灯とかお守り袋とかマスコットの人形とか。
それなんだよ。白い子供と人形。
まるでクイズですね。
今の実験で見たシナプスの現象を起こしやすくなっていることは事実だよ。
するとリリーの精神は肉体と分離して夜中にさまようわけですね。
でもまさかリリーちゃんが。
That night at the show, Lily falls unconscious. They question the father who watches his girl wake up and then hypnotizes her into sleeping again. Jun realizes that's what's causing all this. Jun says she'll become schizophrenic if hypnotized too much, and the father scoffs at all that. He says he's been doing this since she was born. Jun then spots a stolen item nearby from one of the accidents. Sure enough, her spirit goes out and causes more trouble. Two pilots see the spirit outside their plane, which causes them to crash.
どうしたのその指輪。
知らない。知らないわ。
やっぱり遭難したカメラマンの杉本さんのよ。ほら、ここにイニシャルが。
どっから持ってきたんだい？言ってごらん、リリーちゃん。
知らないったら知らないわ。リリー何にも知らないわ。
嘘言っちゃいけないよ。じゃあ、これはどうしたの？
知らない、知らないわ。朝になるといつの間にかオルゴールの中入ってんの。い
つの間にか？
リリーとっても疲れんの。 朝目を覚ますと手や顔に血のついている時もあるわ。
Prof thinks the spirit lily is controlling the body. She goes missing and the dad searches for her. It seems she's off to the mountains where her mother was supposedly laid to rest. The dad realizes he's been wrong for what he did. You should be. Jun and Ippei search for them with some gadget and they spot them on a train track and a locomotive is barreling towards them.
あ、ママの声が聞こえる。ママ。
一平、まだか。
はい。
ママ。
Jun saves her just in time and the father-daughter take up a new gig. Minus the hypnosis, thankfully.
リリーは悪魔っ子ではなかったのです。もし悪魔がいたとすれば、それはリリーの中にではなくて、それを取り巻く世界が歪んでいたからなのです。ご覧なさい。リリーはすっかり明るさを取り戻し、舞台に無邪気な笑いを振りまいています。
In case 26, we discover what happens when we have a pet that can reveal the future to us. We've all had a pet like that, but what happens when they grow up too fast? In fact, why don't I let Rex Banner explain it better for me?
But you people remember, baby turtles and alligators may seem like a cute idea for a pet, but they grow up.
A young pugilist named Dynamite Joe is about to battle his next opponent, but before he does, he talks to his baby alligator friend Peter.
ところで次の対戦相手はいよいよ15連勝の強打者河津というわけですがね、ジョー。一つここでまた視聴者の皆さんの前で予言してもらえませんか。ズバリ何回でというふうに。
あ、おい、ピーター、どんな具合だろうな。何？3ラウンドで倒すだと？おいおい、ピーター、数はかかしじゃねえんだぞ。よし、来た。3ラウンド。
Sure enough, that's how it goes down. Next time it's 5 rounds, next time it's 4 rounds, and so on and so forth. Dynamite Joe is on a winning streak and he can't be beat. He's got the eye of the tiger. Or the ear of an alligator, I forget which. His manager tells him he's fighting for the world title next. No pressure. Joe talks to Peter and lets him out. It suddenly grows to the size of a dog. It seems this is a special kind of pet reptile. All seems to be going Joe's way until he completely disappears a week before his title bout. Meanwhile, at a dance show, Jun spots one of the clowns is indeed Dynamite Joe.
あら、ダイナマイトジョーだ。
特ダネはそう簡単に転がってないわ。他人の空によ。
偉大なボクサーとピエロじゃ月とすっぽん。空にも何も全然似てないよ。
おいおい、君たち僕の目を疑ってるのかい。
だってあれだけ大騒ぎして各社が探し回ってるダイナマイト・ジョーがそんなに簡単に見つかるなんてとっても
信じられないだろ。だからこそ特ダネなんだ。
Joe goes backstage and talks to Peter. It seems the big cheese, Bill Oyama, is taking pity on Joe for being a washed-up alcoholic. Yeah, after he ran away, he hit the bottle. Hard.
欲張るわけじゃないんだがね。君もなんかできるとまあ歌なんては無理だろうけど、例えば
They decide to ambush him with an interview. The gang find Joe, but he's too distraught about Peter being missing. Peter creeps Bill out and he falls into the drink. Ha ha ha. The next day, Joe tells them how he found Peter after a fight during a fishing trip on a yacht. He kept catching Peter after throwing him back, so he took him on as a pet. Joe then explains how Peter could predict how many rounds he'd win via some sort of trance. Too bad this time he said Joe will get knocked out in his title bout, and that explains why he ran. Bill decides to take Peter and turn him into his new attraction for the show. Joe runs off again and hits the bottle. Again. Jun follows and Joe wants to be left alone, and Jun tells him about the rumors floating around about his disappearance. He tries to literally smack some sense into Joe, but he still won't go back. That night a bolt of lightning hit the woods and sets it on fire. They find him, but Peter's grown bigger from the fire's heat. Near giant size, Joe talks him down and leads him to the sea, away from the fire. Peter hits some fuel tanks though, causing a huge explosion. Joe and Peter disappear in the chaos. The next day we see Joe has survived. He decides to set out on his own, without Peter. I assume he's going back to boxing without knowing the result in advance. Good for him. Case number 27 is interesting. There are some people who are afraid to fly airplanes. That's fair. But the crew of this flight landed somewhere they didn't want to go. You ever saw The Langoliers? It's a lot like that, minus the BS ending. Let's not even go into that. Jun and Ippei are aboard a new supersonic flight from Hong Kong. On the same flight, another passenger is a vicious criminal being transported to maximum security in Japan. Is he passenger 57? Yuriko and Professor Ichinotani wait for them to return. The pilots of Flight 206 notice a strange vortex and are pulled right into it. The turbulence causes the plane to shake and the controls go screwy. The plane is being sucked into another dimension. This sounds familiar. Is this where Stephen King got the idea? When Yuriko and Prof hear about the flight disappearance, they head to the radio tower to find out what's happening. But there's no response on radio. They can hear the plane in the air, but they can't see it. Even the professor is stumped on this one.
さあ、どっかに不時着したか、空中分解か。
空中分解。
あ、セブンテールセブンしたしっかりしろ。先生、しっかりしろ。どうした？あの飛行は何だ？今自分上空を通過するジェットはないはずだが。主任、レーダーには映っておりません。何
？Jun and Ippei wake up to see everyone else is unconscious, even the pilots. The criminal named Dragon wakes up and takes the cop's gun. He hijacks the plane and holds Jun at gunpoint and walks him, Ippei, and the pilots out of the plane and into... heaven? No, wait, it's just a fog-ridden void. They find old wrecked planes laying all over the place, including a Zero, but the pilots are all dead. It seems most of these planes are from World War II. Meanwhile, a flight attendant asks if anyone can repair the broken radio.
皆様の中に無線機を修理できる方いらっしゃいませんか?
Certainly, I can fix it.
お願いします。
Cut the circuit!
Ippei gets pushed down, and when he gets up, he opens his hand to find jewels, diamonds. They're laying all over the place. The dragon begins to pick them all up and stuff them into his pocket. Jun goes to grab the gun, but the two pilots get shot in the scuffle. Jun slugs it out with the crook and tells Ippei to help the injured pilots. Here's a surprise, a giant monster was lurking inside the clouds. Good thing Jun has infinite ammo as he shoots at the monster while they make a retreat, back to the plane. Jun takes over the controls while both pilots are injured. He uses the repaired radio to contact Tokyo. Yuriko answers and the prof asks where they are. He explains what kind of dimension they're in, and the prof thinks they're still inside Tokyo, just not visible on radar. They try to punch through this quote-unquote wall of reality, and of course they make it back to Japan. Here it is, the last file in the box. And it's about a flying train. Bet you didn't see that coming, did you? On a lovely car ride at night, Jun and Yuriko seem to be in love. Or rather, Yuriko seems to be in love and Jun's just driving, too oblivious to notice. They're having so much fun they leave Ippei behind, literally holding the bag. He then sees the spectral locomotive from Ghostbusters 2. Look out, you're gonna hit Winston! Denliner, you're in the wrong franchise. Yuriko admits she wanted to be alone with Jun, so they ditched Ippei. Wow, Yuriko, that is just low. Yuriko dreams of a perfect world for just the two of them.
あなたと私だけの世界へ。
結構ですね。
電話のないところ、締め切りのないところ、交通地獄のないところ。
借金取りのいないところ。
それならバーのないところね。
ごちゃごちゃ人間なんか全然いないところ。
要するに、この息の詰まりそうな世の中よ。さようならだわ。
Yuriko, no offense, but you're kind of a ditz. The romance is broken up when they find a drunk man laying in the street. They discover he's unconscious and load him up and take him to Professor Ichinotani for the time being. The man wakes up and screams something about wanting to be let off a train. They grab him before he runs off and gets himself killed on a train track. Maybe he's talking about that one from before? We see he was on one last night, but the camera can't make up its mind. Which Dutch angle do you want to do here?
無殺乗車ですね。いや、しかしこちらにいらしてください。君。
He's then escorted to someone named Tamano, who allows him to stay on the train if he likes. It seems this train is taking people to a world of joy they wanted to go to. A perfect world. One of the passengers discovers this man is a sci-fi author, Kenji Tomano, and the world he wrote about in his book seems to be indeed real. This is starting to sound like In the Mouth of Madness.
You are what I write. Like this town. It wasn't here before I wrote it. And neither were you.
The drunk man doesn't believe it, but is shown the train transports them from their world to the next. He sees his family calling for him, and he decides he doesn't want to go to this perfect world after all. He wants out. Back at the lab, Prof thinks this story is real. It seems he found another person wanting to get on the train. Prof mentions the author Kenji Tomano, who writes about people disappearing, and then they do. Jun and Yuriko go to find this author, and they find his residence, and when they ring the bell, someone else answers. They say they're from the paper, and she gives them a manuscript. It seems he isn't home. Jun tells Prof about what they found, and he tells them the cops just contacted him about that.
はあ、友野検事はですね、1年半ほど前から行方不明なんです。僕の推測では、友野は
実は今そのことで警視庁に呼ばれているんだよ。よかったら一緒に来ないか。そっちで落ち合って結構だ。
The man wakes up with no memory of the incident and his wife comes to take him home. She does nothing but chew him out for 2 minutes and the daughter yells at them both. He then asks the cab to pull over and he goes to work. Yeah, I'd want to do the same. And what does he do when he gets to work? Gets berated by his boss, so he quits. Good on ya. Yuriko sees a picture of Kenji Tomano on the manuscript and wonders what it means. They decide to read the manuscript before taking it to the press, and they discover what Tomano wrote. It seems Kenji wanted to enter the fictional world that he wrote of so bad that one day when he was really depressed and in a slump, he did. Somehow he broke down the barriers of reality. Somehow he entered this world without even trying. Yuriko and Jun deduce that Tomano wrote these novels in peace in this world and sent them to the real world to be published. That's why he went missing, and that's why he hasn't come back.
こうして彼は念願の世界に入ったが、そこにはすでに多くの先住者がいて子供まで生まれていた。と言ってそれらの生活は決して今までの世界の延長でも模倣でもデフォルメでもなく、全く想像もつかぬ素晴らしいものであった。
作家の友野健二はこうやって悠々小説を書いては特別の方法で元の世界に郵送することも可能であれば、特殊な短波を利用して電話などで連絡することも可能だったわけね。
We then see the drunk man from before screaming at the train again to take him back to that perfect world. Poor guy. We should all be so lucky to get a second chance to go to a perfect world.
もしあなたの理解ある異性や温かいご家庭がおありでしたら、夜の電車はくれぐれも気をつけてお乗りください。
And that was Ultra Q. And I gotta say, it still holds up somewhat. The best way I can describe this show is hit and miss. If you like shows like The Twilight Zone or The Outer Limits, which this show is more or less trying to be, you'll like it. It takes some older stories and supernatural motifs and tells them in a suspenseful, thought-provoking way. Some of you may be put off that there's no Ultraman in it, but that was never the intention from the start. Show writer Tetsuo Kinjo wanted to show people what happens when we take things for granted or science is allowed to run unchecked. I'd say he succeeded. But some of the elements haven't aged well, and the endings were kind of bizarre. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think they gave some other shows a run for their money in the WTF department. Regardless of what you may think, Ultra Q has its place in Japanese history, and sci-fi history in general. It kickstarted a whole new trend in Japan and more or less started the kaiju craze of the 60s. Its impact cannot be overlooked. So check it out for yourself if you like. It'll definitely make you think, and it will definitely make you ask questions about life. Well, that's it for another Tokuween, but that may not be all for Ultra Q. The legend goes there are 12 more files out there. 12 more files for me to hunt down. The Neo Ultra Q files. But that's another story for another year. Happy Halloween, Toku Fate. Oh, wait. It's November now. That other me has got to plan these out way more in advance. Oh well, next time. Good night out there, whatever you are.
なめくじのお化けでおっとかそうつったってそうはいかんぞ火星野郎そう来んなら来てみろバカ野郎
このペンダント大きくなってくわ外して外してよ
先輩これどうなってんでしょうねこれ先輩